You're watching Game Changers, and this is Tech Trends. This is a segment where we keep you on the leading edge of technology by keeping you up to date with the latest trends in the techosphere. Now, to start us off, Kenya's ICT regulator, the Communication Authority of Kenya, has put two of the country's largest telcos on notice over service quality. The two telcos, Airtel and Telecom Kenya, failed to meet the 80% minimum threshold for service quality across 33 countries from June 2019 to June 2020. According to a survey performed by Communication in early 2020, the CA Quality of Service survey involved monitoring different services offered by Kenya's three mobile network operators, MNOs, among them the quality of voice, data, and short message services. Now, according to the Communication Authority, Telecom Kenya's service quality average was just 7% shy of the minimum threshold, 73%. Now, while Airtel, the second largest telco in the country, had poor service quality averaging 52%, Kenya's leading telco Safaricom scored stellar performance in the survey with an average quality of service at 92%. Typically, the Communication Authority issues warning for non-compliance and gives the affected firms specific timelines to improve the service quality. Now, failure to which a company could be forced to surrender up to 0.2% of the revenues. Seemingly low, but the actual figure could easily run into dozens of millions of shillings. Now, the market regulator is monitoring the two telcos' performance to check if they've improved their service. However, the overall average quality of service performance stood at 72% across the 33 surveyed counties. Now, the best covered county is Kisumu with 100%, and Tharaka Nithi ranked lowest with an average quality of service at 47%. Now we move on to the next story, where Vivo Y20 smartphone is launched in Kenya. Now, Vivo has launched and announced the launch of its newest entrant in the Y series, the Vivo Y20s in Kenya. Now, the device will be available for purchase at 20,999 Kenya shillings from Vivo stores across the country. Now, Vivo Y20s comes with a 6.51-inch Halo Full V display touchscreen with a resolution of 720 by 1600 pixels. It also comes with a 4 GB of RAM and 128 of inbuilt storage. Now, the Vivo Y20s runs Android 10 and is powered by a 5000 mAh battery and also supports proprietary fast charging. For the cameras, the Vivo Y20s on the rear packs a 13 megapixel primary camera with an f-stop of 2.2. Now, a second megapixel camera with a 2.4 aperture, rather f-stop, and a third 2 megapixel camera with an aperture of 2.4. Now, the rear camera has autofocus, and it also sports an 8 megapixel camera on the front for selfies with a 1.8 aperture Vivo Y20s. Now, features a Qualcomm Snapdragon 460 processor and runs FunTouch OS 10.5 based on Android 10. Now, as I quote, Vivo's success in the global market can be attributed to its persistent efforts to understand and tap into specific consumer behaviors. Now, in line with its ambitions, it continues with a growth trajectory. Vivo works relentlessly to develop stylish and dynamic products that cater to diverse consumer segments around the world. And this is the reason we have the Y20s in Kenya, said Mr. James Irungu, Vivo's smartphone Kenya brand and communications manager. Now, the Vivo Y20s will be available in Kenya in Pursuit Blue and Obsidian Black color options. On to the next story. Now, Reddit bought a 5-second Super Bowl ad celebrating GameStop, and you will have been forgiven for missing it at the Super Bowl ad. Now, it was only 5 seconds long, and the ad mostly consisted of a text message that would have been pretty difficult to read in the moment. Now, claiming that the company spent its entire marketing budget on 5 seconds of airtime, wow, this actually works. If you're reading it, it means that our bet paid off. Big game spots are expensive, so we couldn't buy a full one. But we were inspired and decided to spend our entire marketing budget on 5 seconds of airtime. One thing we learned from our communities last week is that the underdogs can accomplish anything when they come together around a common idea. Who knows, maybe you'll be the reason finance textbooks have to add a chapter on 10 Ds. Maybe you'll help our Super Bowl teach the world about majesty of owls. Maybe you'll even pause this 5-second ad, and powerful things happen when people rally around something they really care about. And there's a place for that. It's called Reddit. Now, if you haven't been paying attention, GameStop's stocks has been soaring in a remarkably volatile fashion on January 22nd. Now, GameStop zoomed upwards 69%, nice, before it triggered a circuit breaker halt. Now, the following Monday, the 25th of January, GameStop's trading was halted 9 times. The idea was to punish short sellers and for the little guys to pummel Wall Street on the surface. Now, this doesn't make sense. GameStop was actually founded a year before Blockbuster and is part of a dwindling cohort of IRL businesses that are being starved by online marketplaces. These days, you can just buy a video game stocks, or rather video games, over the internet instead of going to a soul-killing strip mall to buy a physical copy of the game. But GameStop's business has been suffering as a result. Currently, many people are at home and bored, and consequently, interest in day trading has shot through the roofs. There's a Reddit forum for this by the name Wall Street Bets, which described itself as being, and I quote, like 4chans found a Bloomberg terminal, end of quote. A year ago, a user called Delano DY argued that GameStop was underpriced by the market, and for a while the idea that Wall Street Bets would take over GameStop was a joke, but then it turned serious. Bloomberg reported that the idea was to punish short sellers and for the little guys to pummel Wall Street, as I'd mentioned earlier. So if you think GameStop will fail and the stock will go down, or even that the company will go bankrupt, there is a way to make money on that. Typically, this is done by short selling, or rather a practice where you borrow shares for a fee and sell them, or rather ideally at a higher price, then buy them back, ideally at a lower price, to return them. This can make you a lot of money, especially if the company goes bankrupt and you don't have to return the stock. The thing about short selling is that you lose money if the stock goes up, and your losses are potentially infinite if the stock keeps going up. So there are several other bad things that can also happen, such as an increase in fees or the original investor wanting their stock back. So this means that some shorts will be forced to cover or buy the stock back at a high price, which sends the price even higher. For retail investors, this process has gotten easier and cheaper right now. More people are betting against GameStop than betting it will succeed. So short interest is about 71.2 million shares, while GameStop has only 69.7 million shares outstanding. So Matt Levin of Bloomberg points out that some people will notice that the kind of thing, or rather the thing that you think is that this stock is prime for a short squeeze. Basically, because so many people are short, it may be possible to trigger a chain reaction where you buy enough stock to send the price up, forcing some shorts to cover and sending the price up further, forcing more shorts to cover, and so on. For retail investors, this process has gotten easier and cheaper because of apps such as Robinhood. In addition to letting you buy and sell stocks, you can easily buy an option for stock instead of the stock itself. Now, if you're feeling confident in a stock, you can buy a call option, which lets you buy a stock at a specific price on the specific date. And right now, stocks are memes, and you can trade them to show off to your friends, or options were once a fairly sophisticated thing to trade, something ordinary people didn't really do. But Robinhood makes the option trades easy and free. Plus, there's a social aspect to the trades, which is where Wall Street Bets comes in. Stocks are memes now, so you trade them off to show off to your friends, or rather just flex. So such as the ones on Wall Street, they're typically held in contempt by professional traders, and they are acutely aware of this. The professional short sellers who created the possibility of a short squeeze underestimated the day traders' sophistication, and Wall Street Bets pounced. Time to troll Wall Street out of the money they have. So GameStop's short sellers have been trolled out of about $5, and the fine people of Wall Street Bets decided GameStop was undervalued and the stock would go up. So they put up a bunch of posts about how they are going to be buying GameStop options, and this drove up the stock price for GameStop, as their counterparts had to load up on stock to balance, and then more stock as more people got bought up on options, and so on. So the soaring stock meant some shorts had to cover, sending the stock up further as of January 26th. Short sellers have been trolled out of about $5 billion in 2021, and just from their GameStop positions alone. So what does Robinhood have to do with all this? Well, it makes options trading much more accessible to retail investors. But there's something else. Trades on Robinhood are actually free. But Robinhood isn't offering free trades to be nice. The company gets paid by some big-time investors such as Citadel Securities to see what retail investors are doing. And this phenomenon, which other brokerages are engaged in as well, is called payment for order flow, or rather payment for order flow. So Citadel Securities makes its money on these orders by automatically taking the other side of the order, then returning the market to flip the trade. It pockets the difference between the price to buy and sell, known as the spread. So according to the Financial Times, it's not just a GameStop anymore. Also, GameStop's shorts seem undeterred, as some older shorts are getting out of the market. They're being replaced by new ones, and perhaps this is because they are anticipating the dump portion of the pump and dump scheme. Perhaps this is because they are awaiting quarterly earnings, which usually tanks GameStop's stocks. Maybe they're just having fun too. But it's not just GameStop anymore. Wall Street Bets is YOLOing its way into electric car maker NIO, OG tech company BlackBerry, and AMC, the movie theater chain. And if those day traders are doing it, then the market makers that they buy the order flow from Robinhood are YOLOing along for the ride. And one thing is clear, what Citadel Securities is doing is legal. On to the next story. Myanmar has plunged into cyber darkness on Saturday, that was last week, in all its military borders. So Myanmar's citizens take part in a protest against the military coup in Myanmar, and internet access was partially restored in Myanmar on Sunday. Now, NetBlocks reported as a nationwide web blockade failed to curb public outrage and protests against the coup that ousted elected leader Aung San Suu Kyi. Partial restoration of the internet connectivity confirmed in Myanmar from 2 p.m. local time, which is 1 p.m. first, on multiple providers following information blackout. The Internet Monitoring Service said on Twitter, Myanmar was plunged into cyber darkness on Saturday at the military's order. So NetBlocks said that social media platforms remained off limits on Sunday afternoon, but mobile phone customers using services with MPT, Ooredoo, Telenor, and Mytel are now able to access mobile internet data and Wi-Fi earlier on Sunday. NetBlocks also said that connectivity in Myanmar was at 14% of usual levels. Despite the internet blackout, several live Facebook feeds were broadcast of tens of thousands of protesters marching the streets of Yangon and the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Human Rights in Myanmar. Tom Andrews said that the internet disruption was dangerous and a violation of human rights. I quote, "The generals are now attempting to paralyze the citizens' movement of resistance and keep the outside world in the dark by cutting virtually all internet access," end quotes, he tweeted. Now that's a rather sad development in Myanmar, and we just hope that they're able to regain their internet access. Moving on to the final story that wraps up tech trends for today is about the two tech giants, Amazon and Alibaba, which are the two biggest players in online retail. So they have both unveiled stellar results, which is clear that both Amazon and Alibaba have received a huge boost to their finances during the pandemic, with millions more people shopping from home during lockdowns. Now, Amazon's revenues soared in the last quarter, covering the holiday season, up to 44% on 2019 to $126 billion US. Now, meanwhile, Alibaba had a 37% increase in its sales to about $34 billion US. Each company also reported surging sales and profits for their cloud computing divisions. Now, Amazon Web Services, or AWS for short, accounted for more than 60% of the company's entire operating profit for 2020. Now, meanwhile, 11 years after it was started, Alibaba's cloud business made its first profit with revenues up to 50% on the previous year. But both businesses' results were overshadowed by news about their founders. So for Amazon, it was the moment Jeff Bezos chose to announce he was stepping aside from the day-to-day running of the company. He started in 1994. While the announcement was unexpected, the fact is that AWS boss Andy Jassy is taking over and appeared to impress the markets, and Amazon's shares barely moved. By contrast, Alibaba's investors have plenty to worry about. The Chinese authorities seem to be determined to toughen up the regulation of one of the country's biggest tech champions. And while founder Jack Ma stepped back from running the business a while back, he remains at the heart of the controversies about its power and influence. A speech he made last year about a lack of innovation in Chinese banking seemed to anger the government, and it may have been behind Ma's disappearance from public view for a few months, and the regulators moved to halt the IPO of Ant Group. Now, his fintech businesses, which is partly owned by Alibaba's, the BBC Asia business correspondent Karishma Vaswani tells us that Jack Ma remains the superstar visionary, driving the future of the company. I quote, "He is a larger-than-life character, and he represents innovation in China. He is typically seen on the global stage talking about how we went from rags to riches. So he's somebody's people really connect with." And I also quote, she explains that, but she says that prominence may explain his problems with the authorities. He became bigger than the Chinese state itself. End of quote. And she says that Jeff Bezos had a few similar problems with the US government and with his ownership of the Washington Post, making him a target for President Trump, who referred to him as Jeff Bozo. So in one tweet under the Biden administration, the personal animosity is gone, but issues such as working out conditions at Amazon and its market power will continue to draw criticism from American politics and regulators. Still, it's Google and Facebook that appear to be at a bigger target for regulation. Overall, it's China's Alibaba that appears to have more to fear from its government than US's Amazon, and both Jack Ma and Jeff Bezos will continue to play roles in the companies that they founded. But Amazon's founder may have a bit more relaxing time enjoying his huge fortune and his space and climate change ventures without worrying too much about offending his government. Well, that wraps up all the tech trends that we had for you this week. Do join us next week on this episode, or rather on another episode of Game Changers,